Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked across the dusty plains of New Helena. The sun was setting behind the mountains and the sky turned orange and purple. His cattle were scattered across the dry land and they looked as tired as he felt. The water pumps were failing again and he would need to fix them before morning. Everything on this planet seemed to break down faster than he could repair it. 2 years had passed since his wife died. The colony's medical supplies had run out during a shipping delay and she got sick. There was nothing anyone could do. Jake remembered holding her hand in their small house while she told him to keep going and to make their dream work. But the dream was dying just like everything else on New Helena. Most of the settlers had already left. They packed up their families and took the next transport back to Earth or to one of the better colonies. Jake stayed because he had nowhere else to go. This ranch was supposed to be their future. Leaving felt like abandoning the last piece of her. He walked along the fence line checking for breaks. The crystalline canyon formations glowed in the distance, and they always looked strange at sunset. The rocks on New Helena had this weird quality where they seemed to store light and release it slowly. Scientists said it was some kind of mineral property, but Jake didn't care much about the details. That's when he saw her. A little girl sat on a rock about 50 feet away. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She wore clothes that seemed to shimmer in the fading light and the fabric moved like water. Her hair was dark, but her eyes were the strangest part. They were violet and they seemed to glow slightly in the shadows. Jake stopped walking. There were no other settlements for 200 miles in any direction. The nearest family with children had left 3 months ago. He looked around to see if there was a vehicle or any sign of how she got here. Nothing. Just empty land and rocks. "Hello?" Jake called out. His voice sounded rough from not talking to anyone for days. The girl smiled at him. "Hi, mister. You look sad." Jake didn't know what to say to that. He walked closer and knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" "I'm not lost," the girl said. She swung her legs back and forth like any normal kid would. "I came to find you." "To find me? Why?" The girl tilted her head and studied his face. "Because you need help. My mommy sent me. She's really good at helping people who are sad." Jake felt a chill run down his spine despite the warm evening air. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. But the girl seemed completely calm and happy. She wasn't scared or crying or acting like a lost child should act. "What's your name?" Jake asked. "Lily." "Okay, Lily, where's your mommy?" Lily pointed toward the canyon. "She's waiting. Do you want to meet her? She can make you feel better." Jake stood up and looked toward the canyon. The sun was almost gone now and the stars were starting to appear. He should call the colonial authorities. There was probably some explanation for this. Maybe a ship crashed nearby or maybe there was a settlement he didn't know about. "Come on, mister. Let's go back to your house and you can give me some food. Then we can go see my mommy tomorrow," Lily said. She jumped off the rock and started walking toward his ranch house like she knew exactly where it was. Jake followed her because he didn't know what else to do. His communications equipment was at the house anyway. He could call for help once they got there. The walk took 20 minutes and Lily talked the whole time. She asked him about his cattle and wanted to know what they ate and why they were different colors. She asked about the fence and the water pumps and the house in the distance. Every question was simple and childlike, but there was something in the way she listened to his answers that felt too old and too knowing. When they reached the house, Jake tried the communications. Panel. Static. The system was down again. It happened at least once a week on New Helena. The relay satellites were old and breaking down just like everything else. "I can make you dinner," Jake said. "But then you need to tell me the truth about where you came from." Lily sat at his small kitchen table and watched him heat up some protein rations and vegetables from his greenhouse. She seemed fascinated by the cooking process and asked why humans needed to heat their food. "You're not from around here, are you?" Jake said. It wasn't really a question. "Nope," Lily said cheerfully. "I'm from far away, but I've been watching this place for a while. Watching you." Jake put the food in front of her and sat down across the table. "Why me?" "Because you're special. You keep going even when everything is hard. You take care of your animals even though you're sad. You fix things even when they break again the next day. My mommy likes people like you." "What is your mommy exactly?" Lily ate some food and made a happy sound. "This is good. We don't eat like this. My mommy is old. Really, really old. She takes care of things. She grows things. She helps things live better. Is she human? No, silly. Humans are babies. My mommy's people were traveling in space before your Earth even had trees. Jake should have been scared. He should have grabbed the emergency beacon and activated it. But instead he felt curious. For the first time in 2 years, he felt something other than grief and exhaustion. After dinner, Lily asked to see the stars from outside. Jake followed her into the yard. She stood in the middle of the dusty ground and looked up. Then she raised her hand and started pointing at different stars. As she pointed, Jake saw them pulse and glow brighter. It wasn't his imagination. The stars were responding to her. "What are you doing?" Jake whispered. "Saying hi to my friends. They're scouts too. We're all over this part of space watching and learning about humans." Jake sat down on the porch steps. His mind was racing, but his heart felt strangely calm. "What do you want from me, Lily?" She turned and looked at him with those violet eyes. "I want you to meet my mommy. I want you to see what she can offer. I want you to stop being so sad. And if I say no, then I'll go away and you'll keep being sad until you die alone on this dry planet." Lily said it matter-of-factly without any meanness. "But you won't say no. I can tell. You want to know what comes next. You want to feel something again." She was right, and Jake knew it. He nodded slowly. "Tomorrow, then. You'll take me to your mommy." Lily smiled, and it was the first completely genuine smile Jake had seen in years. "Tomorrow. You're gonna love her, mister. She's the best." That night, Jake lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. His wife's picture sat on the nightstand. He picked it up and looked at her face. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered to the photo, "but I think something's about to change." Outside his window, Lily stood in the yard, still looking at the stars, and the stars looked back at her, glowing in patterns that no human astronomy could explain. Jake woke up to the smell of something burning. He jumped out of bed and ran to the kitchen. Lily stood at the stove trying to cook eggs. The pan was smoking and the eggs were black. "I wanted to make you breakfast like you made me dinner," Lily said. She didn't look upset about the burning food. She looked curious, like this was an interesting experiment. Jake turned off the stove and opened the windows. "Thanks for trying, but maybe let me handle the cooking." They ate proper eggs and some bread Jake had baked 2 days ago. Lily asked more questions about human food and why people needed to eat every day. Jake asked her what her people ate. She said they absorbed energy directly from light and sound and other things humans couldn't see. Food was just something they did for fun sometimes. After breakfast, Jake packed supplies into his old hover truck. Water, emergency rations, a medical kit, and some tools. He didn't know what to expect, but he believed in being prepared. The truck was 15 years old and made concerning noises when it started, but it still ran. Lily climbed into the passenger seat and looked at all the controls with fascination. "This machine is so complicated. You have to do so many things just to make it move." "It's not that hard once you learn," Jake said. He guided the truck away from the ranch and headed toward the canyon. The hover mechanism kept them about 3 feet off the ground, and the ride was bumpy over the rough terrain. The landscape of New Helena rolled past them. Red dirt, scattered rocks, dead vegetation that never quite took root. Here and there, Jake saw the remains of other homesteads. Abandoned buildings with broken windows and doors hanging open. Every one of them represented someone's failed dream. "Why did you stay when everyone else left?" Lily asked. She was looking out the window at the empty land. "I didn't have anywhere else to go. My wife and I came here together. We wanted to build something. Start fresh. When she died, I thought about leaving, but it felt wrong. Like I'd be abandoning her memory." "Do you think she'd want you to stay here being sad?" Jake didn't answer right away. He'd asked himself that question 1,000 times. Probably not. But I didn't know what else to do. Lily reached over and touched his arm. The same warmth he'd felt the night before spread through him. It wasn't magic exactly. It felt more like someone turning on a light in a dark room. His sadness was still there, but it didn't feel as heavy. "My mommy can help with that," Lily said. "She's helped lots of people. All different kinds of people from all different kinds of planets." "How many planets are we talking about?" "Thousands. Maybe more. I'm young, so I haven't seen all of them yet. But my mommy and her sisters take care of whole sections of the galaxy. They plant seeds and help things grow, and sometimes they help civilizations figure out how to not destroy themselves." Jake processed that information. Are we one of those civilizations that needs help not destroying ourselves? Maybe. Humans are tricky. You're really smart and you make amazing things, but you also hurt each other a lot. You have so much feeling inside you. Love and hate and joy and pain all mixed up together. It makes you interesting. Interesting good or interesting bad? Lily laughed. It sounded like wind chimes. Both. That's why my mommy wanted to meet you. You're a good example of what makes humans special. They drove for 3 hours. The sun climbed higher and the temperature rose. Jake's cooling system in the truck barely worked and they both started sweating. Lily didn't seem bothered by it. She just watched the landscape change as they got closer to the canyon. And it was changing. Jake noticed it gradually at first, then more obviously. Small patches of green appeared among the rocks. Tiny flowers pushed up through the dirt. The air smelled different. Less like dust and more like rain, even though it hadn't rained on New Helena in months. Is your mommy doing this? Jake asked. She's getting ready for you. Making things nice. She wants you to see what's possible. The canyon came into view and Jake's breath caught. He'd been to this canyon before. He used to come here with his wife to watch the sunset. It had been beautiful in a stark, empty way, but now it was transformed. Vegetation covered the canyon walls. Trees that shouldn't exist on New Helena grew from impossible angles. Water flowed down the rocks in thin waterfalls. The air shimmered with something that looked like heat waves but felt different. It felt alive. Jake stopped the truck at the canyon entrance. His hands were shaking. What is this place? This is where my mommy lives. Well, one of the places. She's everywhere and nowhere. It's hard to explain in human words. They got out of the truck and walked into the canyon. The temperature dropped immediately and Jake felt like he'd stepped into a different world. The rocks under his feet were smooth and warm. The plants around him swayed even though there was no wind. Everything hummed with a low frequency he felt in his bones. Are you scared? Lily asked. She held his hand like a real child would. Yes. But also excited. I haven't felt excited about anything in a long time. They walked deeper into the canyon. The path seemed to open up before them and close behind them. Jake looked back once and couldn't see the truck anymore. Just green and light and that strange humming sound. Then the path opened into a clearing and Jake saw it. A structure that couldn't exist. It rose from the canyon floor like a cathedral made of crystal and light. It was enormous but also felt intimate, like it was adjusting its size to be less overwhelming. Colors moved through it in patterns that hurt to look at but were too beautiful to look away from. That's where my mommy is, Lily said. Are you ready? Jake wanted to say no. Every instinct told him to run back to his truck and drive away as fast as possible. But a deeper part of him knew this was why he'd stayed on New Helena. Not for his wife's memory. Not because he had nowhere else to go, but because he was supposed to be here at this exact moment. I'm ready, he said. Lily squeezed his hand and led him forward. The structure seemed to sense their approach. An opening appeared in the crystalline wall and soft light spilled out. Music that wasn't quite music drifted from inside. Jake smelled flowers and rain and something else he couldn't identify. They stepped through the opening and Jake's mind exploded with sensory input. The interior was impossibly vast. A garden stretched in every direction farther than he could see. There were beings here working among the plants. They looked humanoid but clearly weren't human. Their skin glowed softly and their movements were too graceful. And in the center of it all she waited. Lily's mommy. She was huge and ancient and beautiful in a way that made Jake want to cry. Her form shifted between solid and transparent. She looked like a woman but also like a tree, and also like living light. She radiated a presence that felt like every comforting thing Jake had ever known all at once. The being looked at him and Jake felt her attention like warm sunlight. She didn't speak out loud, but he heard her voice in his mind. It sounded like music and wind and his wife's laugh all blended together. Welcome, Jake Morrison. I have been waiting for you. Jake fell to his knees, not because he felt he should, but because his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Tears ran down his face and he didn't know if they were from fear or joy or relief. Who are you? He managed to whisper. I am a gardener. I am old beyond your counting. I grow life where there is death. I nurture potential where there is despair. And I have brought you here because you carry something precious. What do I have that could matter to someone like you? The gardener reached out, and even though she was far away, Jake felt her touch his chest right over his heart. You have the most human of qualities. You have suffered greatly, yet you remain kind. You have lost everything, yet you still care for your animals. You have every reason to give up, yet you continue. This is what makes your species remarkable. Jake looked up at her through his tears. I don't feel remarkable. I feel broken. Yes, and that is precisely why you are here. I help those who are broken but not destroyed. Those who can still hope despite having every reason not to. You are one of those humans, Jake Morrison, and I have an offer for you, one that will change everything. The gardener's presence filled the space around Jake like water filling a cup. He could feel her age and her wisdom pressing against his mind, but it didn't hurt. It felt like sitting next to a warm fire on a cold night, comfortable and safe even though part of him knew he should be terrified. "Stand up, Jake Morrison," the gardener said in that voice that was music and memory. "You do not need to kneel before me. I am not a god. I am simply very old and very patient." Jake got to his feet. His legs were shaky, but they held him. Lily stood beside him, still holding his hand. She smiled up at him with those violet eyes, and he realized she was proud of him for making it this far. "I don't understand what's happening," Jake said. His voice sounded small in the vast garden. "Why am I here? What do you want from me?" The gardener moved closer. As she approached, her form became more solid, and more like a tall woman with skin that glowed like moonlight. Her eyes were the same violet as Lily's, but deeper and filled with thousands of years of seeing. "Let me show you something," she said. She touched his forehead with one long finger, and suddenly Jake wasn't in the garden anymore. He saw Earth from space, beautiful and blue and green. Then he saw ships leaving Earth filled with hopeful people heading to new worlds. He saw colonies being built on distant planets. He saw families starting fresh lives under alien suns. He saw the hope and excitement of humanity spreading across the stars. Then he saw the failures. Planets where the terraforming didn't work. Colonies where people got sick or starved or gave up. Ships that never made it to their destinations. Dreams dying in the cold vacuum of space. He saw New Helena and dozens of planets like it. Worlds that were supposed to be paradise but turned into prisons of dust and disappointment. Humanity reached for the stars with such courage. The gardener's voice echoed in his mind. But you were not ready. Your technology was good enough to get you there, but not good enough to sustain you. Many colonies are dying. Many humans are losing hope. The vision shifted. Jake saw other species across the galaxy. Some were thriving. Others had destroyed themselves. He saw the gardeners moving between worlds like gentle giants, planting seeds, nurturing growth, guiding civilizations away from self-destruction. My kind has watched the universe grow for millions of your years. We have seen species rise and fall. We have learned to recognize potential, and we have learned when to intervene. You're intervening with humanity, Jake said. It wasn't a question, yes, but carefully. Your species is proud and independent. If we simply gave you everything, you would reject it. You would think we were trying to control you. So we made an agreement with your Earth government many years ago, an agreement kept secret from most of your people. The vision changed again. Jake saw a meeting room somewhere on Earth. Government officials sat across a table from beings that looked like the gardener. They were signing documents, making promises, setting terms. We would help terraform your colony worlds. We would ensure the success of human expansion, but only if humanity proved worthy. We needed to see if you could maintain what makes you human under the harshest conditions. Could you keep your compassion, your creativity, your stubborn refusal to give up even when everything seemed hopeless? Jake felt anger rising in his chest. You tested us? You let people suffer and die as some kind of experiment? The gardener's presence surrounded him with something that felt like sadness. We did not cause your suffering, Jake Morrison. We simply did not prevent it. This is a crucial distinction. Your species chose to expand before you were ready. You chose to take risks. We merely observed to see how you would handle those choices. People died. My wife died, yes, and that death broke you. But it did not destroy you. You grieved, but you did not become cruel. You suffered, but you did not stop caring for living things. You lost hope, but you did not lose your humanity. This is what we needed to see. The vision faded and Jake was back in the garden. He pulled away from the gardener's touch and stepped backward. Lily squeezed his hand gently but didn't say anything. I was a test subject, Jake said bitterly. You watched me lose everything so you could see how I'd react. Yes, and you passed. So did thousands of other humans across dozens of failing colonies. You proved that your species has something rare and precious. You have resilience combined with empathy, strength combined with kindness. This combination is uncommon in the galaxy. I don't feel special. I feel angry. Your anger is justified. But consider this. What would you prefer? That we never intervene at all? That we let humanity struggle and fail and die alone? Or that we help but only after ensuring you truly are what we believe you to be? Jake didn't have an answer for that. His mind was spinning. He thought about all the abandoned homesteads he'd passed, all the families who gave up and went home, all the people who died chasing a dream that was rigged to fail until they proved themselves worthy. What happens now? He asked. You've decided we passed your test, so what comes next? The gardener gestured around the impossible garden. Now we help. We restore the failing colonies. We give humanity the tools to thrive among the stars. We share our knowledge and our technology. We become partners instead of observers. And what do you get out of this? We get to watch another species bloom. We get to see what humanity will become when you're not fighting just to survive. We get to learn from you as you learn from us. The galaxy is richer when it has more diversity, more viewpoints, more ways of seeing and being. Lily tugged on Jake's hand. My mommy's people are lonely too. There aren't many species like humans. Most civilizations either destroy themselves or become so advanced they lose what made them interesting. Humans are right in the middle. You're smart enough to understand the universe, but you still feel everything so deeply. That's special. Jake looked down at the little girl who wasn't really a little girl. And where do I fit into all this? Why bring me here specifically? The gardener's form shimmered and she seemed to grow taller. Because New Helena will be the first colony we openly restore. It will be the demonstration to the rest of humanity, and you, Jake Morrison, will be the bridge between our species. What does that mean? It means you will stay here and be the keeper of this gateway. You will be enhanced by our technology to live far longer than a normal human. You will be the liaison between the gardeners and humanity. You will help your people understand us and help us understand your people. Jake felt his stomach drop. You want me to stop being human? No. We want you to become more than human while remaining essentially human. You will keep your memories and your emotions and your way of seeing the world, but you will also gain the ability to communicate with us directly, to understand the work we do, to help guide the relationship between our species. And if I say no, then we will find another human, someone else who passed our tests, someone else who is broken but not destroyed. But I have watched you for 2 years, Jake Morrison. I know your heart. I know you want purpose again. I know you want to honor your wife's memory by making this colony succeed. I know you want to matter. Jake hated that she was right. He hated that despite his anger, he was already considering it. He thought about his empty ranch and his failing cattle. He thought about coming here with his wife and imagining what New Helena could be. He thought about all the other settlers who left with broken dreams. If I do this, if I become your bridge, what happens to New Helena? The gardener smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. We transform it. We make it the paradise your wife dreamed of. We bring back the water and the life and the hope. We make it a place where humans can truly thrive, and you will be the reason it happened. Your suffering will have meant something. Jake closed his eyes. He felt Lily's small hand in his. He felt the warm presence of the gardener surrounding him. He felt the weight of the choice pressing down on his shoulders. When he opened his eyes, he looked directly at the ancient being. Will it hurt? No, the transformation is gentle. You will sleep, and when you wake, you will be changed but still yourself. Can I go back to my ranch one more time? Say goodbye to my old life properly? Of course. Take the time you need. But know that once you agree, there is no going back. You will live for centuries. You will watch other humans age and die. You will be set apart from your species even as you represent them. Jake nodded slowly. I understand. Give me 1 day. Tomorrow I'll give you my answer. The gardener inclined her head. That is fair. Lily will take you back now. Rest and think carefully, Jake Morrison. This choice will change everything. The drive back to the ranch was quiet. Lily sat beside Jake in the truck, and for once she wasn't asking questions. She seemed to understand that he needed silence to think. The landscape passed by looking exactly as it had before, dry and red and dead. But now Jake knew it didn't have to stay that way. The sun was setting when they reached his homestead. The cattle were waiting by the water trough, and they made their usual sounds of complaint. Jake got out of the truck and went through his evening routine on autopilot. He fed the animals and checked the fence and made sure the generators were running. Normal things. Human things. Lily helped in her own way. She talked to the cattle, and they seemed to calm down around her. She pointed out which sections of fence needed repair, and somehow she knew without Jake telling her. She was trying to be useful, and it made Jake's heart ache a little. After the chores were done, they sat on the porch and watched the stars come out. The 2 moons of New Helena rose over the horizon, and they cast everything in silver light. It was beautiful in a lonely kind of way. "Do you want to talk about it?" Lily asked. "I don't know what to say. My whole understanding of reality changed today. That happens a lot when you meet my mommy. She's a lot to process." Jake laughed despite himself. "That's an understatement. She basically told me that humanity has been part of some cosmic test and I'm one of the lucky winners. It's not quite like that. My mommy doesn't think of it as a test. She thinks of it as observation, like watching a seed grow. You don't test a seed, you just see if it has what it takes to become a tree. And if it doesn't?" Lily was quiet for a moment. "Then it doesn't. Not every seed makes it. That's just how life works. But humans are making it, Jake. Your species is growing into something beautiful. My mommy can see it even if you can't yet." Jake picked up a handful of dust and let it run through his fingers. "What about all the people who didn't make it? The ones who died in failed colonies? Do they matter?" "Of course they matter. Every life matters. But death is part of growth too. Your wife's death was terrible and sad, but it also shaped who you became. It made you stronger and more compassionate. Without that pain, you wouldn't be the person my mommy chose. I'm not sure I like being chosen because of my trauma. She didn't choose you because of your trauma. She chose you because of how you handled it. Lots of people experience loss. Not everyone responds by continuing to care for animals and fix broken things and stay committed to a dream. You did. That's what makes you special." Jake looked at the little girl who was really an ancient alien being. "How old are you really, Lily?" "About 200 of your years. I'm still young by my people's standards, practically a baby. And you choose to look like a 7-year-old human child. It makes people comfortable. Plus I like this form. It's fun to be small and curious. Adults forget what it's like to see everything as new and exciting." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Jake thought about the choice in front of him. He could say no and things would go back to normal. The gardener would find someone else. New Helena would still be transformed eventually. But it wouldn't be because of him. His wife's dream would come true, but he wouldn't be part of it. Or he could say yes and become something more than human. He could be the bridge between species. He could watch New Helena bloom. He could give meaning to all the suffering he'd endured. But he would also be set apart, different, alone in a new way. "Can I ask you something personal?" Jake said. "Sure. Do you ever get lonely, being so different from everyone around you?" Lily pulled her knees up to her chest. "Sometimes. I have my mommy and my siblings who are other scouts, but I also spend a lot of time with species that don't really understand me. I watch them live and love and die and I keep going. It can be hard, so why do it? Because it matters. Because helping civilizations grow is the most important work in the universe. Because even though I'm lonely sometimes, I'm also connected to something bigger than myself. I'm part of the garden, Jake. A tiny piece of something vast and beautiful." Jake understood that feeling. He'd felt it when he first came to New Helena with his wife. They were part of humanity's expansion into the stars, a small piece of something historic and important. Then she died and he lost that sense of connection. He'd been adrift ever since. If I do this, will I still be able to feel things the way I do now? Will I still miss my wife? Will I still get frustrated when the water pumps break? Yes, my mommy promised you'll stay essentially human. You'll just live longer and have new abilities. The core of who you are won't change unless you want it to. And I'll watch other people age and die. Yes. That's the hardest part. You'll make friends and they'll grow old while you stay young. You'll fall in love again maybe and that person will eventually die while you continue. It's painful. I won't lie about that. Jake stood up and walked to the edge of the porch. He looked out at his ranch and his cattle and the dry land stretching to the horizon. Everything here represented failure. But it could also represent a new beginning. "Tell me what New Helena will look like if I say yes." Lily came and stood beside him. "Green. So green you won't believe it. Rivers and lakes and forests. The air will smell like rain and flowers. The cattle will have real grass to eat. People will come back and build new homes. There will be children playing in the streets of the settlement. There will be hope, and I'll be responsible for making that happen. You and my mommy together. She provides the power and knowledge. You provide the human perspective and the connection to your people. It's a partnership." Jake thought about his wife. What would she say if she were here? He knew the answer. She'd tell him to do it. She'd tell him to make their dream real. She'd tell him that staying stuck in grief was no way to honor her memory. "I need to do something," Jake said. "Will you wait here?" Of course. Jake went into his house and found his wife's picture on the nightstand. He took it and walked out past the barn to a spot where they used to watch the sunset together. There was a flat rock there that she'd loved. He sat down and looked at her face in the photo. "I miss you every single day," he said out loud. "I kept going because I didn't know what else to do. I stayed here because leaving felt like abandoning you. But I think maybe I've been abandoning myself instead." The wind picked up and it sounded almost like her laugh. Jake smiled sadly. "There's this alien being and she's offering me a chance to make New Helena everything we wanted it to be. But I'd have to change. I'd have to become something different. I'd live a really long time and I'd have to say goodbye to a lot of people. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that." He traced her face in the photograph with his thumb. "But I think you'd want me to do it. You always said I was meant for more than just running a ranch. You said I had a gift for bringing people together and making them believe in things. Maybe this is how I use that gift. Maybe this is how I turn all our pain into something beautiful." Jake stood up and held the picture to his chest. "I'm going to say yes. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to make sure everyone who comes to New Helena knows that it started with a dream you and I shared. You'll be part of this even though you're gone." He walked back to the house feeling lighter than he had in 2 years. Lily was waiting on the porch and she smiled when she saw his face. "You've decided," she said. "Yeah, I'm going to do it. Tomorrow we go back to your mommy and I'll accept her offer." Lily jumped up and hugged him. For a moment she felt like a real child and Jake hugged her back. "You're making the right choice. I know it's scary, but you're going to do amazing things." That night Jake packed up his most important belongings. Some photos and his wife's favorite book, a blanket she'd made. Small things that connected him to his old life. He didn't need much. Where he was going, he'd have everything he needed. He slept better than he had in months and he dreamed of green fields and running water. Morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Jake woke before dawn and lay in bed listening to the familiar sounds of his ranch. The generators humming and the cattle moving around outside. The wind rattling the loose panel on the barn roof that he'd been meaning to fix for months. All the small details of a life he was about to leave behind. He got up and made coffee. The ritual of it felt important somehow, grinding the beans and heating the water and pouring it just right. These simple human actions that connected him to thousands of years of people doing the same thing. After today he'd still be human, but he'd also be something else. Lily appeared in the kitchen looking exactly the same as always. "Ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be. Let me feed the cattle one last time." They went outside together and Jake scattered feed for his animals. The cattle came up to eat and he patted their sides. "You'll be okay. Someone will take care of you. There will be real grass soon." One of the older cows looked at him with those big calm eyes and Jake felt his throat get tight. He'd raised some of these animals from calves. They'd been his only companions for 2 years. Leaving them felt harder than he'd expected. "My mommy will make sure they're cared for," Lily said gently. "New ranchers will come when the planet blooms. Your cattle will have good lives." Jake nodded and wiped his eyes. "I know. It's just hard to say goodbye." They loaded into the truck and started the drive to the canyon. The sun was rising behind them and the whole sky turned orange and pink. New Helena looked almost beautiful in the early light. Almost like it could be the paradise people had hoped for. The drive felt faster this time. Maybe because Jake knew what to expect, or maybe because Lily was chattering away about all the things he'd get to see and learn. She talked about other planets the gardeners had helped. Worlds covered in oceans where cities floated on the surface. Desert planets that bloomed with crystal formations that sang in the wind. Ice worlds where life existed in underground caverns heated by volcanic activity. "You'll get to visit some of them eventually," Lily said. "Once you're settled in your role as bridge. The gardeners have gateways on dozens of human colony worlds. You can travel between them." "I can leave New Helena?" "Of course. You're not a prisoner. You're a partner. You'll need to check on other colonies and help establish connections between the gardeners and local populations. It's a big job." Jake hadn't thought about that aspect. He'd been so focused on the transformation itself that he hadn't considered what came after. He'd be traveling between worlds and meeting new people and experiencing things most humans never would. The idea was exciting and terrifying at the same time. They reached the canyon and once again the landscape had changed. More green than yesterday. More water flowing down the rocks. The air smelled like a garden after rain. The gardener was preparing New Helena for its rebirth and the process was already beginning. Jake parked the truck and they walked into the canyon on foot. The path opened before them just like last time. But now Jake noticed details he'd missed. The way the plants seemed to lean toward him as he passed. The way the rocks hummed with that low frequency. Everything here was alive in a way that went beyond simple biology. The crystalline structure appeared and the opening formed. Jake took a deep breath and stepped through. The vast garden stretched before him and the gardener waited in the center. She looked more solid today, more present. Her form had settled into something that resembled a tall woman with flowing hair that moved like water. Jake Morrison, her voice filled his mind like music. You have returned. Have you made your decision? I have. I accept your offer. I want to be the bridge between our species. The gardener's presence washed over him with something that felt like joy. This pleases me greatly. You will not regret this choice. Together we will do remarkable things. She gestured and a platform rose from the garden floor. It was made of the same crystalline material as the structure, and it glowed with soft light. Lie down here. The transformation will take several hours. You will sleep through most of it. When you wake, you will be changed. Jake climbed onto the platform. It was warm and surprisingly comfortable. He lay back and looked up at the ceiling that showed stars even though they were underground. Or maybe they weren't underground. Maybe this space existed outside normal reality. He was learning that the gardeners didn't follow the usual rules. Lily climbed up and sat beside him. She held his hand. I'll stay with you the whole time. You won't be alone. Thank you, Lily, for finding me, for bringing me here. Thank you for saying yes. You're going to be great at this. The gardener moved closer. Her hands glowed with light that shifted through colors Jake didn't have names for. Close your eyes, Jake Morrison. Let go of your fear. Trust in what you are becoming. Jake closed his eyes. He felt the gardener's hands on his forehead and his chest. Warmth spread through his body starting from those points. It didn't hurt. It felt like sinking into a hot bath after a long day of hard work. His muscles relaxed and his breathing slowed. Images flashed through his mind. He saw his life from an outside perspective. His childhood on Earth, meeting his wife, deciding to come to New Helena, building the ranch. Her death. 2 years of grief and survival. Every moment that had led him to this point. Then he saw other things. The gardener's history stretching back millions of years. Worlds they had nurtured. Species they had guided. The vast network of life spread across the galaxy. He saw how everything connected. How life in one corner of space influenced life in another. How the universe was one enormous garden and the gardeners were its tenders. He felt his body changing. His cells being rewritten. His brain forming new connections. His senses expanding to perceive things he'd never known existed. It should have been frightening, but it felt natural. Like he was becoming what he was always meant to be. Time lost meaning. He might have been on the platform for hours or days. He dreamed of his wife and she was smiling. She told him she was proud. She told him to take care of their dream. She told him it was okay to let go and move forward. When Jake finally opened his eyes, the world looked different. Colors were more vibrant. He could see energy flowing through the plants around him. He could hear the hum of life everywhere. He could feel the presence of the gardener and Lily and all the other beings in the garden. It was overwhelming, but also beautiful. He sat up slowly. His body felt the same, but also completely different, stronger, more alive, more connected to everything around him. How do you feel? Lily asked. She was still sitting beside him and she looked delighted. I feel amazing. Is this normal? The gardener's voice in his mind was clearer now. He could understand nuances he'd missed before. You are now connected to the network, Jake Morrison. You can sense what we sense, feel what we feel. This is how we experience the universe. Jake stood up and his movements were more fluid than before. He felt like he could run for miles without getting tired. He felt like he could lift twice his weight. But more than the physical changes, he felt mentally different. His grief over his wife was still there, but it didn't dominate everything. It was one emotion among many. Sadness and joy and excitement and purpose all existing together. What happens now? He asked. Now you learn. I will teach you how to use your new abilities. How to communicate with other gardeners. How to tend the gateway. How to help your fellow humans understand what we do. This will take time, but you have plenty of that now. How long will I live? Centuries at least. Perhaps longer. We do not age the way humans do. As long as you care for yourself and avoid serious injury, you will continue. Jake processed that. He would live for hundreds of years. He would see New Helena transform. He would meet countless humans and aliens. He would be part of something vast and important. The scale of it was hard to grasp, but he felt ready. When does the restoration of New Helena begin? It has already begun. You felt it in the canyon. The process will take weeks to spread across the whole planet. Water will return to the dry places. Plants will grow. The atmosphere will stabilize. Within 3 months, New Helena will be unrecognizable. And then people will come back. Yes, you will send out the message. You will invite the settlers to return. You will show them what has happened. Some will be afraid. Some will think it is a trick. But you will help them understand. You are human like them. They will trust you in a way they could never trust us. Jake walked to the edge of the platform and looked out at the garden. He could see deeper into it now. See the patterns and purposes behind every plant and structure. The gardeners had created something magnificent here. A place where life could flourish in all its forms. I'm ready to start learning, he said. Teach me everything. The gardener's presence wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Then let us begin, Jake Morrison. Let us tend the garden together. The first week after his transformation, Jake spent learning. The gardener taught him how to sense the flow of life energy across New Helena, how to direct the growth of plants, how to communicate with the other gardener beings who worked throughout the galaxy. It was like learning a new language, except the language was alive and constantly changing. He discovered he could touch a seed and feel its potential. Know what it would become and what it needed to thrive. He could place his hands on dry soil and sense the water deep underground. He could look at the sky and read the patterns of weather that would come. But the most remarkable thing was the connection to other minds. He could feel Lily's presence even when she was far away. He could sense the gardener's vast consciousness spread across multiple worlds. And when he concentrated, he could even feel the simple awareness of his cattle back at the ranch. They were content and someone was caring for them, just as the gardener had promised. On the 8th day, the gardener told him it was time to see what was happening to the planet. They went to the surface together and Jake gasped. The canyon was completely transformed. Water flowed in wide streams. Trees grew thick and tall. Flowers covered every surface in riots of color. Birds sang in the branches. Not earth birds, but native New Helena species that had been dormant and were now thriving. This is what the planet wanted to be all along, the gardener explained. The terraforming equipment your people used was crude. It forced Earth biology onto a world that had its own patterns. We are simply helping New Helena express its true nature, while making it compatible with human needs. They walked together along paths that formed as they moved. Jake reached out with his new senses and felt the transformation spreading. Like roots growing underground, the change moved across the planet, slowly but steadily. Every day a few more miles became green and alive. How far has it spread? Jake asked. About 40 miles from the canyon in all directions. It will accelerate as we establish more nodes. Within a month, it will reach your ranch. Within 2 months, it will cover half the planet. Jake thought about the other abandoned homesteads he'd seen. Soon they would be surrounded by life again. What about the people who left? How do we contact them? You will send a message. A simple broadcast to all the former New Helena settlers. You will tell them the planet has changed. You will invite them to return and see for themselves. Will they believe me? Some will. Some will not. But enough will come to investigate. And when they see what has happened, they will tell others. Humans are curious. You cannot resist the mystery. That evening, Jake sat down at a communication terminal the gardener had created from crystalline technology. It looked nothing like Earth tech, but somehow he knew how to use it. His new knowledge included an understanding of systems he'd never seen before. He recorded a message and tried to sound calm and believable, even though his heart was racing. This is Jake Morrison broadcasting to all former residents of New Helena. I know many of you left because the colony was failing. I understand why. I almost left too. But something has changed. The planet is transforming. Water is returning. Plant life is thriving. I can't explain everything in a message, but I'm asking you to come see for yourselves. New Helena can be what we all hoped it would be. Please come home. He sent the message to every address he could find. The Colonial Registry, the Earth Emigration Office, private messages to families he remembered. Then he waited. The responses started coming in within days. Most were skeptical or angry. Some people accused him of running a scam. Others thought he'd lost his mind from isolation. A few messages were sad. People who wanted to believe but had been disappointed too many times. But 3 weeks after he sent the message, the first ship arrived. It was a small transport carrying a family of 4. The Hendersons. Jake remembered them. They'd lived on a homestead about 30 miles from his ranch. They'd left 6 months ago when their crops failed for the 3rd year in a row. Jake met them at the old landing pad near the settlement. He watched their faces as they looked around. The settlement that had been dying was now surrounded by green. Trees shaded the buildings. Flowers grew in the streets. A river that had been dry for years flowed past the edge of town. The father, whose name was Danny, stepped off the ship looking stunned. His wife Kate held their 2 young children close. They all stared at Jake like he might be a ghost. "How?" Danny finally managed to say. "How is this possible?" Jake had practiced this conversation in his mind 100 times. "We had help. From beings who have been watching humanity. They're called gardeners, and they've been waiting to see if we could handle the challenges of colonial life. We proved we could, so now they're helping us succeed." Kate looked suspicious. "Aliens? You're telling us aliens did this?" "Yes, I know it sounds crazy. But I can show you. I can introduce you to them if you're willing." The Hendersons exchanged looks. Their children were already running toward the river, excited by the water and the flowers. Finally, Danny nodded. "Okay, show us." Jake led them to the canyon. With each step, the transformation became more obvious. By the time they reached the crystalline structure, the Hendersons were speechless. The children were delighted. They'd never seen anything so beautiful. Lily came out to meet them. She smiled her bright smile, and the children immediately liked her. Adults were always more suspicious, but kids recognized something genuine in Lily's joy. The gardener appeared, but she kept her form small and non-threatening. She explained everything patiently. The agreement with Earth's government, the testing period, the decision to help. She showed them how the restoration worked and let them touch plants and feel the life energy flowing through them. When it was over, the Hendersons agreed to stay. They would return to their old homestead and see if they could restart their farm. Within weeks, they were sending messages to other former settlers, telling them it was real, telling them to come back. More ships arrived. Some people came just to look and then left again, but many stayed. Families who'd given up on their dreams saw a second chance. Within 2 months, there were 50 people back on New Helena. Within 4 months, there were 200. Jake helped them all. He showed them where to build. He taught them how to work with the new plant life instead of against it. He introduced them to Lily and gradually to the gardener. Some people were afraid at first, but Jake's presence helped. He was one of them. If he could accept the gardeners, then maybe they could too. The settlement started to grow. New buildings went up. A school opened for the children. Someone started a small restaurant. The old general store reopened. New Helena was coming back to life, and Jake was at the center of it all. But not everyone was happy. A man named Carl, who'd lost his wife to the medical shortage, confronted Jake one day. "You're telling me these aliens could have helped us all along? They could have saved people, but they just watched instead?" Jake understood the anger. He'd felt it himself. They weren't just watching. They were trying to understand if we were worth helping. If they'd intervened too soon, we might have become dependent. We might have lost what makes us human. "That's easy to say when you're not the one who lost someone," Carl said bitterly. "I lost my wife too. The same shortage that took yours. I know the pain you're feeling. But I had to choose. Stay angry and bitter or accept the help and make something good come from the suffering. I chose to build something better." Carl walked away without responding. But a week later, Jake saw him talking with the gardener, having his own conversation, working through his own grief and anger. Eventually, Carl decided to stay and help build the New Helena. Jake realized his role wasn't just about being a bridge between species. It was about being a bridge between the past and the future, helping people let go of their pain while honoring their losses, showing them that accepting help didn't mean forgetting those who died. 6 months after the transformation began, New Helena was unrecognizable. Green covered most of the planet. 3 new settlements had formed. The population had grown to over 1,000. Ships came weekly bringing supplies and new settlers and scientists who wanted to study the gardener. Technology. Jake stood on a hill overlooking the main settlement and felt something he hadn't felt in years: pride. This was what he and his wife had dreamed of. A thriving community, People building lives and raising families. Hope instead of desperation. Lily appeared beside him. She'd become a constant companion, and Jake thought of her as something like a daughter. You did it, Jake. You brought them home. We did it. All of us together. My mommy is pleased. New Helena will be a model for other struggling colonies. Humans will see what's possible when you work with us instead of alone. Jake looked down at the settlement. Children were playing in a park. Adults were working in gardens. Someone was playing music. It looked like a real town, a real community. What happens next? Next, you help establish gateways on other worlds. You travel and meet other humans who need guidance. You become the voice that helps your species understand they're not alone in the universe. Sounds like I'm going to be busy. Lily laughed. Very busy. But you'll have help. More bridges will be chosen. More humans who proved they could maintain their humanity under pressure. You'll train them. Teach them what you've learned. A year after New Helena's transformation, Jake stepped through a gateway for the first time to visit another world. The gardener had taught him how to use the crystalline structures as portals. He simply placed his hand on a specific pattern and thought about his destination. Reality folded around him, and suddenly he was standing in a different place entirely. The planet was called Hope's Edge, and it was failing just like New Helena had been. Dry soil and desperate colonists and dreams turning to dust. Jake had been invited by the colonial administrator after word spread about what happened on New Helena. Some people thought it was a hoax, but others were willing to try anything. Jake appeared in the center of their small settlement, and people gathered to stare. A man who could travel between worlds without a ship. Someone who claimed to work with ancient aliens. They didn't know whether to trust him or fear him. The administrator was a woman named Helen who looked exhausted. She'd been trying to hold the colony together for 3 years, and it was breaking her. You're really him? Jake Morrison from New Helena? I'm really him, and I'm here to help if you'll let me. Helen led him to her office, and they talked for hours. She asked questions about the gardeners and the transformation process, and what it would mean for her people. Jake answered everything honestly. He didn't hide the difficult parts. The testing period and the losses they'd endured. The choice he'd made to become something more than human. So we've been suffering as some kind of test? Helen said angrily. These gardeners have been watching us struggle and die. They've been watching to see what humanity is made of. Whether we maintain our compassion under pressure or lose it. Whether we help each other or turn on each other. Hope's Edge has passed their tests just like New Helena did. Now they want to help. And what do they want in return? Partnership. They want humanity to join the community of spacefaring species they tend. They want us to grow and thrive and eventually help other younger civilizations the way they're helping us. Helen rubbed her face tiredly. I want to believe you. But what if this is too good to be true? What if there's a catch we don't see? Jake understood her skepticism. The catch is that you have to accept help from beings you don't fully understand. You have to trust that their intentions are good. And you have to let go of the idea that humans should do everything alone. Some people can't make that leap. Can you show me? Can you prove what you're saying is real? Jake took her to the edge of the settlement where the land was driest. He knelt down and placed his hands on the soil. He reached out with his enhanced senses and felt the dormant life beneath the surface. Seeds that could grow if given a chance. Water deep underground. Microorganisms waiting for the right conditions. He channeled the energy the gardener had taught him to use. The soil under his hands began to change. Moisture rose from below. A small green shoot pushed up through the dirt. Then another. Within minutes, a patch of grass was growing where there had been only dust. Helen knelt beside him and touched the grass with trembling fingers. It's real. You're actually doing this. I'm doing a tiny version of what the gardener can do. If you accept the help, she'll transform this entire planet just like she did New Helena. But it's your choice, Helen. Your people's choice. I can't force this on you. Helen started crying. Not sad tears, but relief. Yes, please, we accept. Whatever the cost, we accept. Over the next 6 months, Hope's Edge underwent the same transformation as New Helena. Jake stayed to guide the process and help the colonists adjust. He became the friendly face of something alien and overwhelming. The person who proved that working with the gardeners didn't mean losing your humanity. More bridges were chosen on Hope's Edge. People who'd survived hardship but remained kind. Who'd lost much but kept going. Jake trained them in the basics, taught them how to use their new abilities, helped them understand their role as connectors between species. He traveled to 5 more struggling colonies over the next 2 years. Each one had its own challenges. One planet had hostile native life forms that the gardeners helped the colonists understand and coexist with. Another had atmospheric problems that required careful adjustment. A third had simply been poorly planned and needed complete restructuring, but the pattern was always the same. Humans who'd been tested by hardship and responded with resilience. Communities that hadn't lost their essential humanity despite every reason to do so. People ready to accept help and move forward into something new. Jake became a legend. The first bridge. The man who talked to aliens and traveled between worlds with a thought. Some people loved him. Others feared him. A few thought he was a traitor to his species for accepting gardener enhancement. He handled it all with patience. He understood the fear and skepticism. He'd felt those things himself. He just kept showing up and doing the work, helping communities transform, training new bridges, building the network of cooperation between humans and gardeners. On his 5th year as a bridge, Jake returned to New Helena for the anniversary celebration. The planet was thriving now. The population had grown to 10,000. Multiple settlements dotted the green landscape. Ships came and went daily. It had become a hub for trade and cultural exchange. The celebration was in the main settlement and people came from all over the planet. There were speeches and music and food from a dozen different Earth cultures. Children who'd been born on the New Helena ran through the streets laughing. They'd never known the dry, desperate version of the planet. For them, this green paradise was normal. Jake stood at the edge of the celebration and watched. He looked older now, though the aging was subtle. A few lines around his eyes. A touch of gray in his hair. He'd lived for centuries, but he wasn't frozen in time. He was changing just at a much slower pace than normal humans. Lily found him standing there. She looked exactly the same as always. Her appearance never changed. "Why aren't you celebrating?" "This is all because of you. I'm happy. I just feel a bit separate from it all. These people are living their lives and I'm just passing through. In 50 years, most of them will be gone and I'll still be here doing the same work. Is that bothering you? The loneliness of it?" Jake considered the question. "Sometimes. But I knew what I was signing up for. I chose this. And I still think it's worth it." A young woman approached them. She looked nervous but determined. "Excuse me. Are you Jake Morrison?" "I am, and you are." "My name is Claire. I'm a biologist from Earth. I've been studying the gardener restoration techniques. I wanted to meet you and ask some questions." Jake smiled. "Of course. What do you want to know?" They talked for over an hour. Claire was brilliant and curious and full of ideas about how to combine earth science with gardener methods. She'd lost her brother in a failed colony. The pain was still fresh in her eyes, but it hadn't made her bitter, just more determined to prevent future losses. As Jake listened to her, he felt something shift in his chest. Recognition. Claire had the qualities the gardeners looked for: resilience and compassion and an unshakable belief that things could be better. She was bridge material. "Have you ever considered working more directly with the gardeners?" Jake asked. Claire looked surprised. "I'd love to, but I don't know how. They don't exactly have a hiring process." "Actually, they do. It's just very selective. I think you'd be a good candidate. Would you be interested in learning more?" "Are you serious? You think I could become a bridge like you?" "I think you have exactly what it takes. The question is whether you're willing to make the sacrifice, to change and live longer and be set apart from normal human life." Claire didn't hesitate. "Yes, absolutely yes. My brother died because we didn't have the knowledge to help him. If I can prevent that from happening to others, I'll do whatever it takes." Jake saw his younger self in her eagerness. He also saw the long road ahead, the loneliness and the losses and the weight of responsibility. But he saw the purpose too, the meaning that came from being part of something bigger. "Come with me. I'll introduce you to the gardener. She'll evaluate you, and if she agrees, we'll begin your training." They walked together toward the canyon. Jake could sense Lily following at a distance, giving them space but staying close. As they walked, Claire asked questions and Jake answered them, preparing her for what was to come, warning her about the challenges, promising her it would be worth it. At the canyon entrance, Claire stopped and stared at the crystalline structure. Her eyes went wide with wonder. "It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Wait until you meet her. The structure is impressive, but the gardener herself is beyond words." They stepped through the opening together, and Jake felt the familiar warmth of the garden wash over him. He was home. Not the home of his ranch or earth or any physical place, but home in the sense of belonging, of being exactly where he was meant to be. The gardener appeared, and her presence filled the space with light and music. She looked at Claire, and Jake could feel her assessment, reading the young woman's heart and mind, measuring her potential. Finally, she spoke, and her voice carried approval. "Welcome, Claire. Your brother speaks highly of you," Claire gasped. "My brother? But he's dead. Death is not an ending. It is a transformation. He exists in different form now, and he is proud of your choice. You will make an excellent bridge." 10 years had passed since Jake first met Lily on that dusty evening. A decade that felt both impossibly long and surprisingly short. Jake stood in what had become his office at the research station built near the gateway on New Helena. Maps of human space covered the walls, each colony marked with different colors. Green for thriving worlds with gardener help, yellow for colonies still deciding, red for the few that had rejected the offer entirely. Most were green now. Humanity had accepted partnership with the gardeners faster than anyone expected. The benefits were too obvious to ignore. Restored planets, extended lifespans for those who chose enhancement, access to technology that would have taken humans centuries to develop alone, and most importantly, a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. Jake had trained 47 bridges across 23 colony worlds, each one carefully chosen by the gardeners. Each one someone who'd suffered loss but maintained their humanity. Together they formed a network that connected human space in ways that went beyond simple communication. They could sense each other across vast distances, share knowledge instantly, coordinate efforts to help struggling communities. Claire had become one of the best. She'd taken to the transformation naturally, and her scientific mind helped her understand the gardener methods in ways Jake never could. She'd developed new techniques for integrating Earth biology with alien ecosystems. She'd written papers that helped other scientists understand what was happening. She'd become the public face of human gardener cooperation, while Jake preferred to work quietly behind the scenes. There was a knock on his door, and Jake looked up from the reports he was reviewing. "Come in." A man entered who Jake didn't recognize at first. Then the face clicked. Danny Henderson. The first settler who'd returned to New Helena all those years ago. But Danny looked old now. His hair had gone completely gray and lines creased his face. A decade was a long time for a normal human. "Jake, thanks for seeing me." "Danny, of course. Sit down. How's the family?" "Good. The kids are teenagers now." "Can you believe it? Seems like yesterday they were running through the canyon for the first time." Danny sat heavily in the chair across from Jake's desk. "That's actually why I'm here. I wanted to talk to you about something." Jake waited. He'd gotten good at reading people over the years. Danny was nervous about something. "You haven't aged," Danny said finally. 10 years, and you look almost the same. A bit older, but not much. Meanwhile, I've gotten gray hair and my back hurts, and I'm feeling every one of my 45 years. That's the enhancement. I told you it would be like this, I know. I just didn't really understand until now. You're going to live for centuries while everyone around you gets old and dies. Doesn't that bother you?" Jake leaned back in his chair. It was a question he'd asked himself many times. "Of course it bothers me. I've watched friends age faster than me. I've attended funerals for people I cared about. It's the hardest part of being a bridge, but it's also the price of the work. Have you ever regretted it? The choice you made?" "Sometimes. Late at night when I'm alone, I think about what a normal life would have been like. Growing old with someone, having kids who'd grow up and have kids of their own. All the ordinary human things I gave up. But then I look at New Helena and all the other worlds we've helped, and I know I made the right choice." Danny was quiet for a long moment. "Kate and I have been talking about maybe accepting enhancement ourselves, becoming bridges if the gardener thinks we're suitable. We want to be part of this work long term, help other colonies the way you helped us." Jake felt a mix of emotions. Pride that Danny wanted to join the effort. Concern about the sacrifices involved. "Have you talked to your kids about it?" "They'd have to accept that their parents would stop aging normally. That you'd be different. We've talked. They're scared, but they understand. They've grown up around the gardeners. This all feels normal to them in a way it never could for my generation. Then I'll recommend you to the gardener. She'll evaluate you both. If she agrees, I'll personally oversee your training." Danny smiled with relief. "Thank you. I know this is a big decision, but it feels right. Kate and I came to New Helena to build something meaningful. Becoming bridges would let us do that on a larger scale. After Danny left, Jake stood at his window looking out at the settlement. It had grown into a proper city now. Buildings rose several stories. Parks dotted the streets. A university had been established to study Gardner methods and train new scientists. Ships came and went from the spaceport in a constant flow of trade and travel. His cattle ranch still existed on the outskirts of the city. Other people ran it now, but Jake visited sometimes. The cattle grazed on real grass under blue skies. It was everything he and his wife had dreamed of. He wished she could see it, but in a way she did. Her memory lived in every green thing that grew, every family that built a life here, every child who played in the parks.